Hello and welcome to this very special broadcast, Kings of Cricket. I'm Zaka Jacob. It's the all-important semi-final of the World Cup. It's India versus New Zealand. It's going to happen in front of 50,000 screaming fans at the iconic Wankhede Stadium in Mumbai. There will be 1 billion plus, of course, rooting for Team India from coast to coast, from Kashmir to Kanyakumari. India have beaten New Zealand once in the league stage of this World Cup already. But will that have any bearing? Remember, New Zealand have been India's bogey team, having beaten India in previous ICC tournaments. So, who are the favourites going into the all-important semi-final, the first semi-final tomorrow in Mumbai? How does India navigate the Kiwi challenge? And how do both teams handle the pressure of this big occasion? But first, let's tee it up for you as to what the strengths and weaknesses are of both sides and what the two captains had to say in the run-up to this marquee clash.
Get ready for the first semi-final of the ODI World Cup 2023. The men in blue, who remained unbeaten in the group stage, will be facing the Kiwis at the Wankhede Stadium in Mumbai. Although Rohit Sharma and company performed stupendously against each and every team in this edition of the World Cup, this match against New Zealand would be a tough one to crack. This will surely remind Team India of the 2019 World Cup semi-final when Kane Williamson led New Zealand knocked out India from the World Cup. A billion dreams were shattered when Martin Guptill's direct hit sent MS Dhoni back to the pavilion and ended India's run in the World Cup. But the situation has surely changed this time around. Team India is running high on confidence and has already defeated the Black Caps once in this edition of the ODI World Cup. India's bowling, batting and fielding look sharp and they are ready to defeat the Kiwis once again. Meanwhile, Kane Williamson and team struggle to get into the semi-finals. But 23-year-old Rachin Ravindra is in a fabulous form and is looking to dismantle the Indian bowlers. The Black Caps also have a formidable bowling lineup who have the potential to trouble Indian batters. Yes, the Kiwis also have an upper hand in the head-to-head battle, but Team India is riding on high confidence. So will India continue to pursue 1 billion dreams at Wankhede, or will the Black Caps get into the finals again by defeating India this time?
All right, and we have a very special lineup of guests joining us here in the studios. And we'll be opening up our phone lines where you can call and ask the expert. If you have any questions for our experts, you can also go to our social media handles on Twitter, on Facebook and on Instagram. 01206403751 is the question. So fire your questions. Here in our studios, like I said, a very special panel of guests. Mohinder Amarnath is former India vice-captain of the iconic 1983 World Cup winning team. Venkatesh Prasad, former India pacer. And of course, who can forget the 1996 quarter-final, India-Pakistan in Bangalore. And of course, via satellite, we're joined by Murli Karthik, former India spinner. And of course, Ayaz Memon, senior sports journalist, also joining us. So let me start off. Let's tee it off. India versus New Zealand. They say New Zealand is India's bogey team. They've defeated us in the previous edition, of course, in the 2019 World Cup semi-final, in the in the World Test Championship in 2021. So they seem to have the edge over India on ICC tournaments. But this World Cup and the way India has played, winning 9 games on the trot, and New Zealand lost their last 4 games. Do you think India has the edge?
No, I think when you're going and playing a semi-final, there are no favourites over here, very honest. Because I think it's all in the past, whether India lost to New Zealand or they have lost a few games before the semi-final, but they have qualified for the semi-finals. Yes. So I think they're all ready. I think the good thing for them, the Williamson coming back into the side. I think that makes the batting order and the team preparation much better. And he's a very experienced player.
Yes.
Plus a captain.
Correct.
So because he has got the experience, he played in the last World Cup also. So I think both teams are equally matched and depends, who will handle the pressure better.
But what is the X factor? What do you think on big games like this? Like you said, the past record does not matter. Yeah. It's about which team turns up on the day. What is the X factor in tomorrow's game, you think?
No, I think this team reminds me of 1985 when we played the World Championship in Australia, and we won all the games. And when we went to the semis, I think there were slight hiccups over there in between the game. So there, what you need somebody to come good at the right moment. Over there, I think. But the way they're bowling, the way they're batting, I think they're a very, very settled team at the moment. And it all depends on the nature of the wicket also, because as we know in Wankhede, ball swings also, it spins a bit and good for the batter also. So everything is there. So how will you start? How will you handle the pressure? That's the key.
That's the key. Venki, let's talk about New Zealand's record. I said World Test Championship 2021, they defeated India in the final. In the One Day World Cup semi-final 2019, we remember the heartbreaking run out of MS Dhoni. You saw that package a moment ago. Then, of course, there was the Champions Trophy all the way back in 2000 in Kenya. You were part of that team, right? So basically in knockout games, India has not defeated New Zealand. There's also the T20 World Cup in 2021. New Zealand won that by 8 wickets. I mean, they say bogey team, the bogey man and so on. I don't believe in any of that. Why should this be one of the marquee clashes? Because India has already beaten New Zealand once in this tournament, and reasonably convincingly. It was not a close match. It was a pretty reasonably convincing win. Will that be the thing on the back of people's mind, or the players' mind, or will it be, past tournaments and the past record and so on?
Definitely, they would like to take the confidence into this game, the Indian team, having beaten New Zealand in the league stage, and having said that, there's going to be a lot of nerves actually, because there's no second chance now going forward. It's just one game, that's about it, right? So you got to get everything right in that game, that is the semi-finals that they're playing against New Zealand. So they cannot even put a foot wrong anywhere. Okay, and in terms of the statistics or the history that, where New Zealand has got the better of the Indian team in the knockouts or in ICC tournaments, that's all in the past. That's gone. I don't think Indian team or this Indian team would like to go back that long, whether it's 2000 or even 4 years back, 2019 or even the Test Championship as well. So they would like to take a lot of confidence from these 9 matches that they have played, and they have played superb cricket. I think everybody have stood up. They've put their hand up. They've taken up the challenge, and if you look at the batters, they've scored runs, and everybody are in great confidence. And so are the bowlers. So I think they've ticked every single box. I think going tomorrow's game, if you look at it, I think finally the 2 best teams or 4 best teams obviously have qualified to the semis. There's no doubt about it. And 2 best teams are playing tomorrow. That's India and New Zealand both. So the difference is tomorrow's game is fielding. We have seen, fielding. Absolutely, yes. We have seen what happens if you miss those catches, like what happened to Australia in the very first game when they dropped Virat Kohli. Or what happened to Afghanistan when Mujib dropped Maxwell. Isn't it? So that can change the course of the game. So this is where I think both teams will be looking to do their best. That is something which they can control. Batting and bowling, no matter how much you work on your batting, a good ball will take you or get you out, or sometimes as a bowler, a good ball can be whacked for a 6 or a boundary. So that's not in your control, but fielding is something which is in your control. So I think in tomorrow's game, it's fielding.
Okay, so before we get to our callers, I also want to get a word in from both Murli Karthik and Ayaz Memon. So Karthik, one of the interesting things, this is again an interesting statistic that our team has dug out. New Zealand, over the last 3 or 4 tournaments, ICC tournaments, have gone on to lose to one of the hosts. In 2011, they lost the semi-final against Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka, of course, was the co-host of that World Cup. They went into the final. India beat Sri Lanka in the final. In 2015, of course, New Zealand was a finalist. They were also co-hosts of that World Cup. They lost to Australia in the final. And, of course, the 2019 England-New Zealand final, the iconic final. Who can forget that? So you think that jinx sort of negates the jinx that India has not beaten them in any of the knockout games?
I don't know whether to say that this augurs well for India or to think that they have beaten been a problem area for a long time. Look, it's a very different scenario. We can all talk about it till the cows come home, but I'm pretty sure even if the teams and the players don't want to know about it, they will be told that this is what's happened in previous encounters or previous times. So there is a part of it going into any player. Subconsciously, it is there. You might want to completely shut it out, but it doesn't happen. Whatever anyone might say. Yes, the confidence of having been a top side or the top dog in the tournament is definitely there. Yes, you have beaten them. That was also not something which was possible. The most important thing which India needs to look at is, can they continue the mindset? That is exactly what I'm coming back to. I said this yesterday as well with Anand Narasimhan. It's the mindset. I think once you have that mindset, you don't want to think about who's in front of you. The mindset which they've had has been ruthless right through the tournament. In whatever situation they've been dumped into, they have come out roaring back, and that is the only mindset you want to see from the Indian team. If they do that, you can have anyone right now. This team is too good for them.
Ayaz, like Venki also said and Karthik also said a moment ago, the kind of role that they've been on, they've of course won all 9 games in the league stages, also the manner in which they won those games, other than a very brief period in that Australia game when they were, I think, 20 for 3 or something, they've never really been put under the mat in that sense in any of the games, right? Whether it was versus Pakistan, South Africa, of course, was, complete rollover in that sense. Other than that brief period in the Australia game, they've really dominated in all 3 departments, batting, bowling and fielding in that sense. So, would that be confidence going into the semi-final, or could that also be room for some complacency?
No, I think we are, as supporters of a team or just generally people who follow sport, we are always looking at one little aspect which might go against a team which is doing so well. It's 9 wins on the trot, and what could be better than that? You don't want 3 wins and 3 losses and 6 wins, and then we'll be debating whether they're really primed up for this challenge or not. I think, look, it was two runs for 3 wickets in the first game. They dumped themselves out of a hole through Virat and through Rahul, won that match and haven't looked back since. I think it's been a fantastic run. It shows the all-round strength. I think Venki's made the point, and so did Jimmy Amarnath, and so did Murali Karthik, that this is a team where everybody seems to have a role definition and is performing it to the level expected, the level of excellence expected. Now, you have to obviously account for a stumble which can happen. This is sport. Something can, Mujibur Rahman dropping a dolly of Maxwell cost Afghanistan the match and possibly a place in the semis. Something like that can happen. A run out, a great catch, something like that. So, but that apart, I see this team is the best ODI team that I've seen from India ever. The only rival I can think of is the 1985 team which Jimmy Amarnath referred to, which played the World Championship of Cricket, not the one which won the 83 World Cup. In terms of talent and composition and balance and whatever else. So everything is going right for this team, and hopefully, and as everybody's mentioned, what's happened in the past is over. The tournament begins now for all these 4 teams. In the past doesn't matter.
Okay, so I'm going to take our first set of callers. I'm going to take callers in sets of 3, so it's easy for our panelists also to respond to their questions. So the first caller tonight is calling us from Mumbai, incidentally, the city that will be hosting the semi-final, the first semi-final, India-New Zealand. Prasad Shetty is calling us from Mumbai. Good evening, Mr. Shetty. Go ahead. What's your question?
Hi, Zaka.
Hi.
Happy Diwali to everyone. I just have one question, like India is on a roll and they are playing absolutely brilliant cricket. But if suppose we lose the toss and we are made to chase, okay, and we have seen that in big games, in a knockout game, runs on the board, even 250, 260, we saw what Afghanistan did. So if suppose 260, 270 is on the card and India is chasing, and we all know the 50-20 overs, underline, ball is going to nip. If suppose Saudi, Ferguson and Bolt get 2 to 3 wickets, how will India respond?
All right, I think the toss question is a good one. We'll put that to our experts. Vijay from Bengaluru is calling us. Good evening, Mr. Vijay. Go ahead.
Good evening. It's a build-up of the question the previous person asked from Mumbai. My question to you, Mr. Venkatesh Prasad, if India's batting does not go as per plan, that is, Rohit and Virat out, then I feel Rahul is going to play a critical role as a listener of the team. So I want to come in from Mr. Venkatesh Prasad, who was slightly more critical of Rahul in some of the things that have been played.
Okay. All right, Vijay, thanks for your call. Let me go to Harbeer Kohli from Indore. Mr. Kohli, good evening.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Zaka. Big fan of yours.
Thank you, sir.
I have a question for Mr. Mohinder Amarnath. My question to you is that India has played so well, 9 games out of 9, and now getting into the semi-finals. Don't you think India is going to be under pressure?
Okay, Mr. Kohli, thank you for your call. Let me start with the first question. I think the toss question was a fair one because Rohit was also asked that in the press conference about the dew factor and so on. And he said, I don't think there's any dew in the Mumbai, in the Wankhede pitch, at least at this time of the year. This is what he said. But do you think the norm is big games, win the toss, bat first because scoreboard pressure comes to play?
No, I think usually it happens because when it's like knockout stage and if the wicket is good, and you forget about dew factor and other factor because you want to score, you have to have those runs on the board.
Yeah.
So once you have a big score, then you can always put the other team under a lot of pressure. So toss is important, I think, especially for the game like this, a semi-final. And they have played against each other earlier. Of course, it was again a very tight game. It was not a one-way traffic. It was at end of the day, anybody could have won at that time. So I think the key factor over here, what New Zealanders have learned from their last defeat, that's a key thing over here.
Yeah.
Because the way they bowl, whether they're going to bowl in a similar fashion or they're going to do something different. But I personally feel, I think New Zealander will work differently because they're experienced side, they have experienced bowlers, and they will not bowl short in this game. I personally feel they'll keep the ball up. Because in Bombay, when you play at Wankhede Stadium, you get some movement over here. So they'll come with some different planning over here.
So control the controllables.
Yeah, Venki,
right?
the question that the caller asked you about KL. Are you
before-
surprised the way he's evolved in this tournament?
Before answering that
Okay,
question,
go ahead.
before coming back to the toss here, I mean, control the controllables. So obviously, you can't control toss. It can go either way, right? So I think Indian team is in a very good space, very good position where they have chased down scores. They have batted first and scored, 300 plus scores. So they're in a good space. They know. I mean, so obviously that's one of the reasons why I suppose Rohit did say that. And toss doesn't matter, or dew doesn't matter, whether toss or not, or dew or not, it should not matter. So they have done both in this tournament, and they have literally rolled over, as you said, the opposition. And talking about KL Rahul, I had mentioned this before. KL Rahul has abundance of talent. Okay, I've seen him from 15, 16 years, coming down to a National Cricket Academy there, playing on, KSA practice pitches. I've seen him. And so I've seen him for a very long time, and he was not living up to the potential, I suppose, not living up to the talent or the expectations, so that's one of the reasons why I was critical, and I was critical about him in a couple of formats, not in all formats, especially in test matches and T20s. He was taking too long a time, and he was getting settled and getting out, throwing away his wicket and getting those starts, and was not able to convert those starts. And also T20s, he was playing too slowly. So I think it is great to see him. I think he had a break, he had an injury in IPL, so he was out for almost about 6 months, 4 to 6 months he was out. And then he has come back completely different. And I think sometimes you need that bit of space for a player if he gets injured to just step out of the field and think and have some clarity in mind.
Before I go to our next set of callers, I want to ask Karthik this, because coming into this tournament, one of the sort of problem areas for India was number 4 and number 5. Now between Shreyas Iyer and KL Rahul at 4 and 5, you think that hole has been bridged and their performances are there for everyone to see, Karthik?
In a big way, Zaka. And I wouldn't say that it was a problem area. Maybe during the previous World Cup, that was a big one because Ambati Rayudu was tried for a long time and he did well. And suddenly on the eve of the tournament, they said, thank you, bye-bye. Someone else has to come and fill that hole, who has not played enough games. And also, please remember, when you're preparing for a World Cup, you want a guy to get enough chances at that position. And talking of Shreyas and Rahul, look, Shreyas has had an injury, but he's performed really well for India. Rahul has had an injury, but he has also done, as Venki said, very nicely in ODI cricket. And when you look at his numbers at number 5, it's actually the best. And for him to have the dual role, which is something which everybody has to commend him for. For starters, I thought Ishan Kishan is still a better wicketkeeper, but the way he is kept during the tournament, I think it's been outstanding. The glove work has been stupendous. So all that has been addressed. But I wouldn't say that coming into the tournament, India had a problem at number 4, number 5. It was only amount of game time and also the fact that these guys were coming out of injury.
I think they were trying a lot of people at that position. They tried Suryakumar Yadav for a bit. They tried Ishan Kishan for a bit. So a lot of people had sort of tried that number 4 position. But anyway, be that as it may, I'm glad that we sort of found a permanent 4 and 5 at least for the remainder of this tournament. Let's get other callers in. KV Sridhar is calling us from Chennai. Yes, good evening, Mr. Sridhar. Go ahead.
Yeah, good evening. This is a question to the most senior player, Mr. Amarnath. I had an opportunity to meet your father, Mr. Lala, at the Chepa ground. It was a blessing in disguise. And let me put across a very straightforward question. India and New Zealand are poised equally. Going by the facts, tomorrow, what are the surprises going to come up?
Okay, what surprise factors? All right, thank you for your call. Chetan is calling us from Amtagad. I hope that I've got the name right. Amtagad in Chhattisgarh. Yes, go ahead, Mr. Chetan. Good evening.
Quick hello to all the panelists and Namaskara Venkatesh Prasad ji and my favorite cricketer Murli Karthik. My question is, can Ravichandran Ashwin find a place tomorrow in the semi-finals or the finals?
Okay.
Because he's one of the senior players and well experienced in tough situations. I'm sure he's gonna, in terms of batting and even the bowling, considering Wankhede.
All right. Thank you for your call, Mr. Chetan. Mr. Bhushan from Noida. Good evening, Mr. Bhushan. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi, good evening. My question is to Jimmy Amarnath. If India wins toss, should we go for bat first or ball first?
Okay, thank you for your call. I think that question was more or less answered, that you win the toss, usually you want to bat first. But I think the question that the gentleman from Chhattisgarh asked about Ravi Ashwin, do you think the squad, which is a settled one, and they didn't change it even for the last game against Netherlands, which was, a foregone conclusion, but you think they will tinker with the lineup on such a big game?
No, Jaga, I don't think so, because I think it's a settled team and both spinners are bowling well. Seamers are doing their job wonderfully.
Yeah.
So unless there is an injury over here, only then I can see Ashwin coming in.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I think they'll go with the same.
And to think that it was Hardik Pandya's injury that actually gave way for Shami, and then there was, of course, Suryakumar Yadav also being brought in. Do you reckon that this whole idea that we've had, and I guess we've been chasing for this number 7 all-rounder for a very, very long time now, but without having a full-fledged Pandya-like all-rounder, we're still doing as well as India have done in these last 9 games. That's a relative point of comfort, because again, they tried Shardul Thakur there, they tried all kinds of part-time bowler come batsman at that number 7 position, but now finally we're coming good with 5 quality bowlers.
Absolutely. I think they've been top class. They've executed their skill to perfection, I should say, be it fast bowlers or be it spinners. And they've used their variations, they've used their angles. I think their strategies has been outstanding. And moreover, actually, they're not experimenting much with their bowling. If you look at the faster bowlers, they are just bowling the test match line and length. I've been saying this again and again and again. And they're not doing too many things. They're not bowling those change of pace early on, or they're not bowling those Yorkers early on. They're just hitting that 3/4 to back of length and on or around the 4th stump, and
so this
kept on asking questions.
Trio of Bumrah, Shami, and then Siraj. This is as good as Indian pace bowling has been in a while.
It's fantastic, absolutely, yes. They've got the pace, they've got the skill, they've got an amazing seam position, all 3 of them, and as we speak, people also have said that if Bumrah doesn't get you, it's Siraj or a Shami or the couple of other spinners. So I think the whole bowling department is doing extremely well.
And again,
they've taken up the role. They've been responsible and accountable, because we were just going in with 5 bowlers. That's about it, right?
I think that was a big call, Karthik. As a spinner, to see two full-time specialist spinners play almost all the games that we've had. That must be heartening. And you know, both of them have done very well as well. Both Kuldeep and Jadeja have also been in the thick of wickets. Jadeja, in fact, even got a fifer in the game against South Africa.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the key things which this bowling lineup has done is obviously there are the others and some good batters up against you. They've not allowed any opposition to get away from them. Even if there's been a partnership, when they've come back strong and they've hit very hard, which means that they've got wickets in clusters, which means the teams don't get away. You look at the way they've all bowled. I think at one stage, Jasprit Bumrah was his economy was 2.9 in the power play. Siraj was slightly expensive, but he still gets you wickets. Mohammad Shami, from the time, as you said, he has come in, he has taken wickets. The most important thing is spinners. As the reason why I say that is, in the middle overs in ODI cricket, it tends to stall or it tends to meander a bit. And both these guys have the ability to get wickets in the middle overs. And once you start doing that, and once you have a bowling lineup which can be used at any time, Bumrah can come in the middle and get you wickets. Siraj can do that. Shami can do that. And obviously the spinners are doing that. So they've all been complementing each other depending on the situation. And that's why I also use the word adaptability. Adaptability, because India has played 11 different centres and 11 different types of wickets. So to adapt to all those wickets, the pace, the length which they need to bowl, it's been top quality.
All right, more callers calling us. Mr. Vinod is calling us from Chennai. Good evening, Mr. Vinod.
Hi. My question is like Rohit have tried array of bowlers against Netherlands, non-bowlers.
Yeah.
So my question is for the three ex-cricketers, which I love most, especially Amarnath ji. And my question is like, if a bowler is having a bad day tomorrow, whom they will opt for?
All right, thank you for your question. Srinivasan is also calling us from Chennai.
Okay, my question is, what will be the impact of not having a full-time all-rounder when if the winner and one of the then manage the.
All right, thank you. Sridhar is calling us from Bengaluru. Sridhar.
Good evening, happy Diwali to all. So I have a simple question, Zaka. Team India is doing great. I'm sure this is not, it requires a lot of planning and preparation. So I want to hear from all these experts, who are the driving force behind this and what kind of effort that went in.
All right, thank you for that. The question about the part-timers, I mean, they tried Kohli and Rohit Sharma and I think Surya Kumar Yadav bowled as well. I mean, was that just to see if they are game ready in case the situation arises?
No, I think it was more or less become a fun game later on. They knew that they had a huge lead and all that. So I think, yes, Virat can bowl. It's not that he cannot bowl. Rohit also, if it's necessary, I'm sure he can bowl a little bit off spin. I think it'll only happen for few overs. You don't see these bowlers bowling 10 overs or 8 overs or 6 overs. And if it happens, that means the Indian bowling will be struggling. Only then it will be happening, not otherwise.
The fact that the Wankhede is a small ground and it's generally a batter-friendly ground. So looking at, the highest score in the Wankhede is 438 for 4, South Africa versus India in 2015. Lowest is 115, Bangladesh versus India in 1998. But the average score is 261. So it's not on the lower side. Yeah, it's not 300 plus, but certainly it's not on the lower side. Do you reckon that we'll have the need to use one of the part-time bowlers?
Again, it depends on the bowler if they have an off day. As we speak, I mean, in the last few games, they've just gone on with 5 genuine bowlers, and fortunately, everybody have been top class in terms of execution or their skill sets and every aspect. And Rohit, I think we need to give him the credit for using his bowlers really well, bringing them on at the right time, giving them breaks at the right time, and so on. And I doubt it. I think maybe, as Jimmy Paji said, a couple of overs or maybe 3 or 4 overs, both put together, Rohit and Virat Kohli put together might bowl. But otherwise, we don't see them bowling maybe 5-6 overs or so.
So let me ask Ayaz, I think 2 points that Venki also made. The way Rohit Sharma has used his bowlers, I think it was in the Pakistan game. It was always pacer from one end and spinner from the other. not letting the Pakistani batsmen sort of get settled. And there was a long partnership for the second wicket. Babar Azam was there in the middle, and suddenly, Bumrah produced this beautiful spell where he got both Babar and Rizwan out. But in that 20 over phase, they still kept the faith. They still were going at the Pakistani batsman, spinner from one end and pacer from the other. And similarly, Rahul Dravid mentioned this about Rohit Sharma right at the top of the batting. He's not going for the hundreds. He's not going for the big individual glory. He really understands that he has to lead the team from the front. This is a modern day one-day game that they're playing, as Rahul Dravid said, that we had fallen too slow some years ago. Our openers were, in the traditional mold. They were trying to get the eye in, go for the big personal milestones and so on. But now the modern game has changed with Bazball and what have you. So it's almost like, going back to the 90s when you had Jayasuriya and Kalutarana sort of opening for Sri Lanka, and it was just, go from the first ball. And so Rohit, in a sense, has taken that onus on himself, and that when the captain does that at the top, I mean, the message just rubs off on the rest of the team. That's what Rahul Dravid had mentioned. So just a word on how Rohit Sharma has sort of, risen to the occasion, particularly in this tournament. He's not had great success coming into this tournament, but in this tournament, it's almost like a new team has been born.
Zaka, I mean, look, when you discuss or when we talk about Rohit Sharma, we have to first up say that he's one of the all-time greats, certainly in white ball cricket. You can count 5 cricketers on your fingertips, and Rohit will feature in that. And I'm saying it across generations. So he's got a stupendous record. Last World Cup, he had 5 centuries, which was, is mind-boggling. And what he said is right. I think there are 2 aspects to how Rohit Sharma has performed in this tournament. One is as a batsman who's going out and making the most of the power play. He's in overdrive from the first over. And when it's needed, I think Karthik mentioned this in one of the earlier shows, when it was needed against England, he played a completely different type of knock to make sure that India wins. Small total you're chasing, but you needed somebody to stick out on a slightly dicey pitch, and he did that. So he's leading from the front. The way he bats, he's easing the pressure on the batsmen who follow, because he's giving you such a flying start and the other team is going helter-skelter. And then there is the captaincy. I think that, look, at least for people like me, and I've seen him in Bombay, I've seen him in the IPL, and obviously a lot of what he's done for India as a captain. He's a very canny captain. He's a very canny player. He susses out opponents very, very early, and then he plays. He's got, I think certainly the game plan has been put in place with Rahul Dravid and him and the senior pros. I think also add in Ajit Agarkar, who I think as a chief selector has a very big contribution to make, because these 3, when they got together, they picked up a squad which had some, some compunctions that people had. Ye chalega, wo nahi chalega, keeper batsman, this, that, and the other. It's all worked out well. Now, and Rohit as the captain, you have to give him credit for a lot that is going right. There is no template for, fixed template for how ODI cricket or any format of cricket should be played. It keeps evolving. It may be a different Rohit you see tomorrow, depending on the match situation. Yeah. But so far, he's been absolutely magnificent.
So let me go to other callers also who are calling us. Vishwanathan is calling us from Chennai. Good evening, Mr. Vishwanathan.
Good evening to everyone. I had a question about the something which was not picked up in the mainstream media, but I read about it a couple of places. That the ICC is monitoring and virtually dictating that the pitches should not be turners. Now, my question to the panelists, would they ever dare to do this? If the World Cup was being held in England or New Zealand, and they say it should not seam and swing. I think this is affecting the composition of the team. India is playing 3 genuine fast bowlers, which they never do.
Well, thank you for your question. I haven't seen this anywhere, but we'll put that to our panelists. Vinod is also calling us from Cochin. Vinod.
Hi, good evening. I mean, I've been hearing the panelists talk about Rohit Sharma's approach throughout this tournament.
Yep.
So I just wanted to know, being in the knockout, especially if India is chasing, will he be forced to take a cautious approach at Wankhede while chasing? Because, the pattern has been such in Wankhede that the new ball has been doing all kinds of things. And batting tends to get easier after the 15th over or the 20th over.
All right, thank you for your call, Vinod. Let me also get one more caller in. Rahul is calling us from Gurugram. Rahul.
Yeah, hi, good evening. This is Rahul from Gurgaon. I had one question for the panel. While we see that the Indian team seems quite unstoppable, is is there any weakness which the panel sees in the team right now? Any one weakness?
Okay, thank you very much for your call. Any one weakness that the panel sees in the team? I mean, they say success is many fathers, so this team is on a roll. You can't. It's hard to find a chink in the armor.
Yes, definitely yes. But then tomorrow's game is going to be extremely challenging because they have to face maybe not just 10 overs of left arm spin, probably 20 overs of left arm spin with Rachin Ravindra and Santner.
Yeah.
And also they have to come up against Bolt, left arm seamer. So I think they've got, even New Zealand has got all bases covered. Kane Williamson has come back. He's leading the team extremely well. He's playing superbly as well at number 3 and 4. And they've got the bowlers, they've got the pace in it, they've got bowlers to who can swing the ball and they coming from different angles. So I think it's going to be extremely challenging tomorrow for the Indian team.
The question about the ICC, I mean, I have not read it anywhere. It's a caller, and I guess he's free to ask a question. But do you think that kind of diktats, directives?
I don't know. I've never read anywhere, so I don't know really, because I don't think they will get into all this because they have a lot of other things to cover, other things to do. And usually I think it depends on the curator or the groundsman how he makes the wicket. And usually what actually is, I have seen when India is playing, the wickets have been slightly on a slower side. That's for sure. Because when you see Australia playing South Africa or other games, they're belters, the ball is coming really nicely onto the bat. That's why whenever India is playing, they're not huge total you see on the board. Maybe 300 runs or maybe around that kind of a score. So I personally feel it's going to be similar kind of a wicket we'll see here at the Wankhede.
We'll get one final caller. I believe it's an 11-year-old who's calling from Bengaluru, Akshobhya. Good evening, Akshobhya. Go ahead.
Yes.
Yeah, what is your question?
My question is that if India get off to a good start and the openers start for a long time, should they send Surya Kumar Yadav upstairs?
Okay, should they send Surya Kumar Yadav up first before they send the others? But I do want to stress for a minute or so on Virat Kohli as well. And Karthik, please weigh in on this because he's now the elder statesman of this team. He's already made 500 plus runs in this tournament. He's 594. He's 6 runs short of 600 in this tournament. From all that he's been through in the last 4 or 5 years, the captaincy and then, stepping down from the captaincy, Rohit being brought in, all the changes in the team management. But he seems to be finally enjoying himself. So is the rest of the team, but particularly Virat needs to be in that frame where he's enjoying his cricket, he's enjoying the senior statesman role in this team, and he's having fun from whatever the videos that we see on Instagram and Twitter and all these medal ceremonies for fielding that the support staff seems to have. I think the dressing room atmosphere, and great credit to Rahul Dravid and the support staff, they've created that atmosphere. And it's only in that atmosphere do you draw the best out of players. Even, legends like Kohli or Rohit, they need a supportive dressing room atmosphere to get the best out of them. Just a word on that, Karthik.
Yeah, 100%, Zaka. And I mentioned this yesterday when we were talking to Anand Narasimhan. I think one team environment, and me, Jimmy Pa and Venki Bhai, all have been part of it. So you can either create a team where everybody is so secure of themselves, or you can create a team of insecurity. And what these guys have done, and the reason why I say that, and I said this yesterday as well, when I meet Rohit or any of these guys for a toss or presentation, they're always constantly talking about the messages that they have sent across to the team, which means that there is a lot of honesty and transparency. And you want that. As a player, you don't want anybody pussyfooting around you or trying to say that, oh, I tried for you, but the other man didn't, and all that. You want God's honest truth. Whether you're good, you're bad, you need to improve on this. This is what you need to do. Even if you do well, there could be a situation where you might be sitting out. And you look at all the players who are sitting out, they've all been told that, listen, you might have done exceptionally well for India, but you buy into the fact that we are playing World Cup. There could be times where you have to sit out. And that is one of the reasons why you see this team enjoying themselves. a small ceremony, like you mentioned, the medal ceremony.
Yeah.
People are vying for it. There is that healthy competition. Healthy competition is always brewing good security. Everybody is secure of their place. Bad competition brews insecurity, and that is something which team doesn't have. So once you're honest, once you're transparent, I think you've got a great atmosphere in the side. It's a settled atmosphere. Talking of Virat Kohli, yes, he's had his ups and downs with whatever has happened around him. And also I felt there was a part of me which felt that there was a period of time when he felt that the world was against him. It is not. The world was not against him. Everybody raves and keeps him at a pedestal which was given to Sachin Tendulkar. Sachin Tendulkar was kept at that pedestal when he was playing in his era, and that is Virat Kohli right now for the rest of the world and the rest of the cricketers. So it's good to know that he is enjoying himself, and that is exactly what the Indian team needs.
I'll get the final two callers and then final comments from our guests here in the studio. Murli from Delhi and Shiva from Bengaluru. First, Murli from Delhi. Yeah, go ahead. Are you all right? Shiva from Bengaluru, final caller. Yeah.
Good evening, sir. What will be the good total to defend or chase in absence of Ishan and Hardik Pandya?
All right. What would be a good total if you're batting first?
No, anything. I think you have to have runs on the board, and whatever you have to defend that, whether it's 200, 300, 350. So I don't know. It depends on the nature of the wicket. It's too early for us to say sitting here.
But from the games that we've seen in Mumbai, it's been generally on the higher scoring side. It's not like a Lucknow pitch or even an Eden Gardens pitch where sometimes it gets a little tricky.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're right. Wankhede pitches is good to bat on and also to bowl in the evenings because gentle sea breeze that comes in. And so probably anywhere around 280 in a one-day game, it should be chased if Indian team is looking to chase or if they get to chase. And if they get to score 280, I think the bowlers need to defend that. They do have the bowling attack. And for me, again, it's in the second innings. Whatever happens, it's in the second innings. Even if you bat first, win the toss, bat first and score say about 210 runs, it's up to the bowlers to defend the 210 runs. Right? And if the bowling, if Indian team bowls first for whatever reason, and if they give say about 290 or 300 runs, it's up to the batters to score those 300 runs. As simple as that. So the game is in the second inning. So they have to be up for it.
All right. Team India certainly up for the challenge. Like I said, no one expected at the start of this tournament that they would go into the semi-finals winning all 9 on the trot. I don't think India has had this kind of a dominant performance in any ICC tournament, certainly not in the recent past. So let's hope, fingers crossed, that good form continues. And just a word of caution, I'm sure all our panelists will also agree, irrespective of the result tomorrow. Yes, if it goes India's way, great. If it doesn't, let's just cherish what a remarkable journey these guys have had and what remarkable entertainment they've given all of us over these last 6 weeks or so. Thank you very much to all our guests, to Jimmy Paji, to Venki, to Karthik, and of course Ayaz for joining us. They'll all be back here nice and early tomorrow. I think 1 o'clock is when our special coverage will start for the all-important first semi-final, India v New Zealand from the Wankhede Stadium in Mumbai. In the meanwhile, if you've been tuned in, thanks for your time.
Co-presented by.
Now what remains to be seen as to what new arrangements or schemes can be made by the government to make sure that the AQI remains under breathable levels, because over the past 1 week we have seen that the AQI had deteriorated, which meant that there were a lot of health issues that people of the national capital were actually facing. So the next 1 week is going to be very, very important, especially from the point of view of the Delhi government and the Delhi administration, to make sure that schemes are made and implemented in such a way that the AQI remains under control and it does not become hazardous for the people out here in the national capital.
जैसा दिल्ली सरकार ने कहा था कि फायर क्रैकर्स बर्न नहीं करने, लेकिन उस हिसाब से फायर क्रैकर्स बहुत ज़्यादा जलाए गए हैं दिल्ली में. जहाँ मैं रहता हूँ वहाँ भी मेरे को बहुत देखने को मिला ये, तो मैं परेशान होकर रात को सो नहीं पाया, फिर सुबह साइकिलिंग करने निकल गया. जब से ये न्यूज़ आई थी पराली जल रही है, तो तब से मैं निकलता हूँ फील करने के लिए कि क्या वेदर में चेंज हुआ है या नहीं हुआ है, बट हुआ है चेंज.
ये मतलब पोल्यूशन का ही है ज़्यादा, तो यहीं से तो बाकी तो सब बढ़िया है. ऐसा मास्क वगैरह भी नहीं लेके आए हम. उधर क्या सब कुछ ठीक है, यहीं पे थोड़ा सा परेशानी है.
after the relief that people of the national capital got just a few days ago after light spells of rains had engulfed the national capital, which meant that the AQI had come down significantly and was hovering in the poor category. Now post Diwali, we are seeing that the AQI has again deteriorated. Currently, I am reporting from Kartavya and just move to the frame and try and show you in the visuals over here that another layer of smog has yet again engulfed the national capital. But remember, this is not only smog, but what experts are saying that there is element of fog that is also in these visuals that you are seeing on your screens right now. So yes, the AQI has deteriorated after Diwali, but remember the AQI was already in the severe category at least 2 to 3 days ago, and today as well the AQI is still hovering within the very poor to poor category, but yet it is still very difficult for people to breathe out here. Remember the manner in which the Supreme Court orders of not bursting any sort of crackers was flouted yesterday. There were several cases that were seen out here in the national capital where this order of the Supreme Court of not bursting any sort of cracker was definitely flouted. In fact, the fire department itself had got more than 100 calls till 10 p.m. itself. So it actually shows that the people of the national capital, in fact, the majority of the people of the national capital were actually not bursting crackers, but yes, there was a significant number who were seen flouting these norms and bursting crackers, because of which we are seeing that the AQI has yet again deteriorated out here in the national capital and is yet again in the very poor category. Now today, the prediction from the IMD is that once the sun is out, the wind speeds are likely to pick up and these pollutants would yet again be washed away. And that is the only silver lining for the people out here in the national capital. But remember, over the next few days as well, the AQI is likely to remain in the poor to very poor category, and in fact is likely to deteriorate yet again in the severe category as well because of the wind directions. Now what remains to be seen is to what new plans can the Delhi government and the Delhi administration make sure that they initially make sure that is implemented on the ground to the T, so that some sort of immediate relief can be provided to the people out here in the national capital who have been suffering from this deteriorating air quality for at least the last 10 days. Currently, I am reporting from the pollution hotspot out here in the national capital, that is the Anand Vihar bus terminal, and if I could just show you in the visuals around here, the visibility is not as bad as it was expected. The AQI out here in the national capital remains to be in the very poor category, although the measures of GRAP 4 has been implemented, but yes, the manner in which the order of the Supreme Court of not bursting crackers was flouted by several people out here in the national capital, that has made sure that the AQI deteriorates yet again. But if you compare the AQI that is today, the very next day post Diwali with the yesteryears, you can actually see that the AQI is not as bad as it was expected, and in fact it has somewhere or the other been better than what it was last year at this time around. Also, what we have seen that yes, there were several people who had flouted the norms and had gone ahead and busted crackers through the night on the day of Diwali. But yes, today the AQI has definitely deteriorated, but it is not as bad as it can be seen. On the other hand, we have seen a lot of politics that has already started to happen in this entire matter. The opposition leaders are already coming on record and putting blame on the BJP leaders because they were the people who instigated people to go ahead and burst these crackers. So yes, the political blame game has already started. But if you speak about the AQI has definitely deteriorated post Diwali, but it is not as bad as it was over the last many years right after the day of Diwali. Currently I am reporting from Akshardham temple, where I could just show you in the visuals around here that yet again today cloud of smog has yet again engulfed the national capital. Remember, over the weekend we saw that there were spells of rain, which meant that the AQI in the national capital had improved significantly. But post Diwali, yet again we are seeing that the AQI in the national capital has yet again deteriorated. The main reason behind this is being said to be the manner in which the norms were flouted by the residents of the national capital even after the orders of the Supreme Court, which meant that there was a blanket ban on bursting of any sort of crackers. That was flouted significantly out here in the national capital, and that is the reason why we are seeing that the AQI out here has yet again deteriorated. Over the next few days, the IMD predicts that the AQI might improve due to the wind conditions, but if you look at the longer run over the next 1 week, the AQI is yet again going to get back into the severe category, which means that it is yet again going to be a troublesome time for the people out here in the National Capital Region, where yet again they would be forced to breathe in the toxic air. Now what remains to be seen as to what new arrangements or schemes can be made by the government to make sure that the AQI remains under breathable levels, because over the past 1 week we
In a surprising move, UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has dismissed his Home Secretary, Suella Braverman. For weeks, Ms. Braverman had been openly challenging the Tory government's stance on immigration and mass deportation. The breaking point occurred when she authored an article last week for The Times in London. In that piece, she ended up accusing the Metropolitan Police of double standards. Her allegations included the claim that the police were lenient on pro-Palestinian protesters, while at the same time being harsh on right-wing demonstrators who were agitating in support of Israel. There was a lot of religious dog whistling in that article, to which 10 Downing had sought some modifications. But Braverman refused, the article was published, and the protests and counter-protests happened over the weekend, which happens to be one of the most solemn in Britain, Remembrance Day, which commemorates the signing of the armistice at the end of World War I. But the scenes on London streets at that weekend were far from somber. There were clashes between pro- and anti-Palestine groups, resulting in the detainment of over 100 individuals. Privately, law enforcement officials informed the government that Ms. Braverman's words were exacerbating tensions. It was like adding fuel to the fire. Technically, she, as the boss of the Metropolitan Police, instead of dousing the fires and helping the police do their job, was actually fanning them. However, Braverman's dismissal was not the only shake-up in Rishi Sunak's cabinet. The more significant surprise was the appointment of former Prime Minister David Cameron as the new Foreign Secretary. While former Prime Ministers returning to government in lesser roles has happened before, Cameron's comeback is particularly rare. The last time a former Prime Minister returned to the cabinet was more than 50 years ago. Harold Wilson came back to the government after having demitted office as Prime Minister, and that was in 1979. Today, it's 2023. With Braverman out and Cameron in, Sunak is also signalling multiple shifts in the government's direction. Braverman represented a challenge to Sunak's leadership from the hard right faction of the Conservative Party, particularly on issues like immigration. Additionally, she was also a vocal opponent of the India-UK Free Trade Agreement. That was a point of contention since Boris Johnson's time as Prime Minister, and there have been, 3 Prime Ministers since him? Multiple deadlines had come and gone for the signing of the FTA, but negotiators were simply not able to get it done. With David Cameron's inclusion, Sunak aims to convey a move towards the political centre. David Cameron, known for his compassionate conservatism, offers a more moderate and centre-right alternative to the brash hard-right conservatism that is spearheaded by figures like Braverman and Gov. Cameron is also a big defender of free trade and legal migration, so Sunak will be hoping that David Cameron can get the FTA done. Moreover, Cameron's appointment places a heavyweight in charge of the UK's foreign relations. With personal relationships with global leaders like Joe Biden and Benjamin Netanyahu, David Cameron is likely to command more attention than his predecessors. A Biden or a Netanyahu or even a Putin, for that matter, are likelier to give Cameron their time of day compared to a Braverman or a Cleverly or even a Sunak. It signals that British foreign policy is back in the hands of an adult and someone who is not bent by panderers to the extreme right. Cameron's centrist and internationalist approach, supporting legal migration and free trade, sets a very different tone for the rest of the term of Sunak's government. It will be useful as Britain navigates the contours of the 2 ongoing wars in Gaza as well as in Ukraine. However, David Cameron does face some intense challenges in reconciling his pro-Europe stance during the 2016 referendum. He lost his job basically after misguidedly taking Britain into a referendum on whether to stay or to leave the European Union. And in that referendum, of course, a slender majority of the country voted to leave the EU. David Cameron had campaigned passionately to remain, but he misread the mood of the country. The current leadership of the Conservative Party, from the time of Boris Johnson onwards, has been predominantly pro-Brexit. Cameron will have to reconcile this obvious contradiction. Also, his previous government's austerity cuts were deeply unpopular at that time. That could also pose obstacles. The Labour Party, which is already leading by over 20 percentage points nationwide, could rip into David Cameron's spending cuts from a decade ago. Further, Cameron's advocacy for improved ties with China may be contentious in the current geopolitical environment. Cameron had famously heralded the golden age of China-UK ties, and that seems like a century ago. David Cameron blooded his politics right after the fall of the Berlin Wall. It was a time when globalization was at its peak, the US became the sole superpower in the world, and free trade was the conventional norm. Today, post the age of Trump and post the age of Brexit, when increasingly the West is going insular and anti-free trade, will Cameron's politics from the 90s and the noughties resonate with today's average British voter? On the domestic front, Sunak's move may also be aimed at the so-called blue wall voters. These are constituents of south of London, along the English coast, traditionally which have been Conservative strongholds. Recent by-election losses in these areas indicate that moderate Tory voters who were disenchanted with the party's stand on immigration and slogans of "Stop the Boats" were shifting towards the Liberal Democrats. Cameron has done business with the Lib Dems, having run a government, a coalition government, successfully for 5 years before dumping the Lib Dems right before the 2015 election. And that election, Cameron came back to office on the strength of just the Conservative Party. Sunak, by bringing in Cameron and his more centrist conservatism, is hoping to lure back some of these voters back to the traditional values that the Conservative Party stands for: small government and low taxes. In a sense, the reshuffling of Rishi Sunak's cabinet reflects a strategic maneuver, a maneuver to try and consolidate support within the party, present a united Conservative family, and of course, most importantly, appeal to a broader voter base come the 2025 elections. The inclusion of David Cameron symbolizes a departure from the more divisive politics associated with figures like Braverman and Gove, and a return to a more centrist, internationally focused conservatism. Whether or not this gamble pays off for Rishi Sunak and the Conservative Party as they navigate the complexities of a new Britain, that is something that only the 2025 general election will reveal. But this is going to be an interesting space between now and the next general election. The strategic control of the Al-Shifa hospital stands as a crucial Israeli objective in this current offensive in Gaza. Situated right in the heart of Gaza City, the sprawling hospital complex poses a significant challenge in the ongoing ground operations by the IDF. And there are two reasons for this. One is because of the hospital's close proximity to key Hamas infrastructure. There are thousands of tunnels that have reportedly been built under the hospital premises. And two, the hospital complex itself is bang on the main coastal road that connects North and South Gaza. The Israeli aim in this operation is clear: to dismantle the elements of Hamas that are governing Gaza. And Israel believes very strongly that some of those elements may be hiding under the hospital complex. Israel feels it is critical to destroy the hospital tunnel infrastructure, which is the only way of preventing Hamas from re-emerging as a military threat. Now, most Israeli defense experts emphasize the need to address the military and political entity that is Hamas and to ensure the absolute annihilation of Hamas in this ongoing conflict. Now, militarily, that may even be possible. Israel may be successful in cutting Hamas off its legs, but that would not address the question of what replaces Hamas and its ideology, and whether or not an ideology is replaceable at all. The entire Israeli focus right now is on dismantling the terror infrastructure through absolute military means. In the heat of this war, Israel currently is not focused on or not even interested in how to counter the ideology that has given rise to Hamas. Shock and awe seems to be the name of the game, at least right now. However, the offensive also comes with its own set of diplomatic challenges and risks. The United States is concerned about the impact of Israel's operations on innocent civilians in Gaza's hospitals. White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, in a recent interview, stressed on the American desire to avoid firefights inside hospitals. He also highlighted the ongoing consultations with the Israeli Defense Forces in this regard. But whether Netanyahu and his troops on the ground are in a position to listen to Biden or his advisors at this current moment, that is still an open question. Israeli officials also assert that medical facilities are not targeted deliberately. They claim that Hamas uses the Al-Shifa hospital as a shield, locating its headquarters inside the bunkers beneath the hospital, and that they also use patients and medical staff and displaced individuals as human shields. That is a claim which Hamas has vehemently rejected.
Co-presented by
UI had deteriorated, which meant that there were a lot of health issues that people of the national capital were actually facing. So the next 1 week is going to be...
Hello, Namaskar. This is First Post and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. The Israel-Hamas war is